All right. Well, welcome back to Second Breakfast. We are here to talk about Diablo IV. This is sort of part of our ongoing coverage. We did a big retrospective about Diablo III. We did an episode about the Diablo IV beta, and now the game is out. We're here. We want to talk about it act by act, so we brought Tristan back, and we have Maggie, of course.
Yeah, thank you for... like I may not be here.
Sometimes you're not. I was editing an episode today you weren't on.
Oh, that's true.
Ooh.
You do occasionally have a solo.
I'm not.
Trouble in Paradise.
It does. It sucks when you're not there. It's not nearly as fun.
Yeah. Anyway, well, yeah. This is our back. What are we calling this? Diablo Diary.
Well, yeah, Diablo IV Diary. Little ongoing Diablo IV coverage. Great. So we're going to go act by act as this huge long story unfolds, and this is sort of a loose little discussion. We're going to do story and gameplay, but before we get to that, I want to ask both of you, because we're focusing on Act 1 here. 1, what class did you decide to play as? And 2, what are your sort of general first impressions of the game?
I'm clearing my throat. You go.
Oh, well.
Very professional.
I think you've started, Maggie.
Okay, fine. So I chose to play as the Necromancer, and I really wanted to play Rogue, but I've decided to save that for when I play solo, because so far I've only been playing with couch co-op with Cam, and so I chose Necromancer because it was a good ranged character. I really enjoyed it in D3. That's the latest thing I've played in D3, and since us recording the retrospective when we all got excited and wanted to go play it. That's what I've been doing.
Maggie's also had a hard time leaving her emo phase, so this is really tapping into that.
It's especially in this game, like you have to you have to lean into the death, the demons, the blood, all that. So that's what I've been doing, and I really like the game. I mean, we can get into the specifics later, but I'm really, really enjoying it. It is so far, for the most part, meeting my expectations, and I'm just really happy with it. It's so fun to be back in the world, but also playing with new stuff and being in a new world and a huge expansive map, and I'm loving it. It's really fun.
As for me, I since Blizzard gave me a big old middle finger and did not have the Demon Hunter as a playable class in Diablo 4, I had to settle for the Rogue, but I'm glad that I'm playing it because it can scratch that itch. Rogue's playstyle is kind of different from the Demon Hunter in Diablo 3 because you kind of have the choice of melee or ranged approach. So depending on your build, you can kind of do either one. I've sort of got a mix of each going on right now, but I feel like as you get into late game, it'll be, you can sort of min max and pick one over the other, and you'll have a better build, be optimized for one over the other. But pretty much everyone right now is playing a melee-esque rogue with the ability called Twisting Blades. That's sort of like the money maker there. But I've been trying to play it more of a ranged. So I've got a rapid fire skill, which is like the main damage dealing skill that the Demon Hunter had.
Nice.
It's a little bit different. You can't do like a continuous stream like you could there. Now it's like, you've got to press a button several times and whatever. But anyway, it's been a lot of fun. It's kind of been, it can be difficult at parts to solo as a rogue. Because it's probably the squishiest class next to the sorcerer, but even the sorcerer has a lot of built-in survivability features that the rogue doesn't have. So it's been interesting doing that alone, especially when you go into like dungeons and world bosses and stuff. That is tougher right now, earlier game with the rogue.
Awesome. So generally you're enjoying it, even though it's
Oh yeah, it's been a ton of fun.
I'm maining the Barbarian. Which is melee and not the best. And my secondary that I'm playing alone is a fire mage sorcerer, and that's a lot more fun.
Awesome.
Which is the best.
What are your like overall impressions of the game?
I'm loving it.
Okay.
I think it's tough, but even like we've prepped right now for the first 2 acts, and my opinions have swung, I think, wildly between those.
Okay.
So I don't have like a final impression, I think, for where I am right now.
Okay.
I'm really liking it, but it's certainly more tricky.
I would say that it's more challenging on the whole than Diablo 3 was.
Oh, yeah. I'm getting that,
Because I died more. So there was this one boss, right, in one dungeon. I think it's like a spider boss. The name is Seret.
Yes.
That one was hard.
So I fought that one alone. and I probably died 8 or 10 times, which is not common in like a Diablo game like this.
No.
Maybe something like Elden Ring or some of the From Software games, you might die that many times to a boss. It's not typical. Like usually if you die like that in this game, you're like, oh crap, I got caught in the CC or I got stunned and so they killed me while I was standing still. But this was like the whole thing was designed to be just a murder trap. And so it was really difficult to solo because with all of the number of enemies and then all of the spiderwebs everywhere and the poison,
it was the poison. That was the worst.
It was really tough. And I'm playing on what are you guys playing on? World Tier 1 or 2?
1.
Okay, see, and I was doing it on 2 solo, and that was really tough. So like I'm running in I think into limitations that didn't really seem to exist as a solo player on Diablo 3 because I think they've ramped up the difficulty a little bit.
Yeah.
It's because the enemies scale with you.
Yes.
Every single thing in the world scales with you. And I mean, I know we'll touch on this later, but that has impacted my impression of this because part of what I love about Diablo is the power fantasy. Like the point of min-maxing your build forever is so you can destroy a dungeon. And I am never destroying anything in this game.
Yeah, that's how I feel too. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, so let's jump into the story. First off, I think we should take a moment to acknowledge that Diablo IV is part of the RICU. The RICU, the Ralph Ineson Cinematic Universe. This guy has been in everything I love. I looked up his IMDb. Not only is he the dad in The Witch, that's sort of the obvious thing here.
Yeah.
He was in the UK Office.
Yes.
He was in The Northman. He's in the upcoming Nosferatu movie from Robert Eggers. He was in the Tragedy of Macbeth, the black and white one that we covered. He was in The Green Knight. He was in Kingsman and Guardians of the Galaxy. He was in Chernobyl, Sherlock, Peaky Blinders, Game of Thrones, and 3 Harry Potter movies.
Really?
He's in everything that's good.
Wow.
Everything. And
good for him.
That makes him like the good luck token for fantasy.
Nice.
Definitely. And here he plays Lorath. He's sort of the narrator, telling this big story about Lilith and Inarius creating Sanctuary, which is the land that we're used to playing in. And the story involves their Necromancer son, Rathma. We've got a key to hell, major monster events, this cool sequence where you're ripping apart these tumors of hell. There are these nasty goat men running around everywhere, demons, werewolves. But I think the story that can get kind of into freewheeling gothic fantasy, I loved that the main story here was anchored in a very small mother-daughter tale centering around Neyrelle. Things got so cosmic in the first couple sequences, the first couple cutscenes, that the fact that this Act 1 resolved with Vigo's character, this one guy who has a moment of guilt, and he's consumed with this kind of concept of valor and shame and responsibility. When he sacrifices himself and jumps into that knight penitent armor, which is like the Iron Maiden thing, the fact that this big runaway fantasy story, Act 1 ends with this guy jumping into an Iron Maiden and saving you and dying, I feel like it grounded everything for me.
Yeah.
Where I was fun flying away with the huge elements of it, but I wasn't expecting the story to feel so almost street level and character driven.
I was surprised by that too. Yeah, I think that's something that this game is doing a little bit better than D3. I think D3 tried to sort of cement it.
Oh, is that what we're doing now? We're just gonna.
Well, it's just what I'm sorry. Listen, like it. D3 really tried to like hone in on the human element with Leah's storyline, but I did not care about Leah. Like, I know that when we did our D3 retrospective, we talked about how we liked the story, and I did, but I didn't care about the Leah part.
Sure.
Maggie, known liar.
I kind of forgot about her because I don't care.
Yeah.
And like they tried to like make that like grounded, like human, like one-on-one relationships element there, and I just didn't think it worked, but I thought it worked quite a bit better in this one.
Yeah, it's like we're dealing with such high concepts with a lot of these central characters. You've got these huge angels and demons and hell and heaven, divinity, punishment. But I never felt like in Diablo 3 those ideas were engaged with. I felt like it was more the imagery of that.
Sure.
But
aesthetics, yeah.
Characters like Vigo, like so much of this first act was seeing characters fail or lie or cheat. The things that you don't really notice it, but a lot of movies and shows don't have that. even though it gives you such human interest and complexity.
Yep.
I love that it grounded it there. There's a real, there's a moral depth here instead of just the gesturing that Diablo 3 had.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
That's kind of what I like about it's what I liked about the storyline of Diablo 3. And I'm glad to see it continuing here because Blizzard has done a really great job of setting the expectation and the tone of what's going to happen in the story of a Diablo game, which means things that you don't want to happen. Oftentimes the worst thing that could happen is exactly what is going to happen. But it never, even though you kind of expect that, it still feels pretty gut-wrenching. And there's an Act 2 thing that I'm specifically thinking about whenever I say that. But as far as Act 1, I mean, it was pretty. I mean, that's when you look at the cutscene. Really, we talked about Neyrelle, her mom being sort of the key to getting to where we needed to go to find Lilith, or at least where she was. She had to reanimate her corpse.
Yeah.
And we killed her because she went crazy. And she comes back and she repents kind of and is you need to move on and move forward, but before I go back, let me show you the way. That's pretty touching. When you really take it at face value. It's easy to get lost in just mowing through monsters and everything like that. But there really is a lot here, and with Vigo kind of having his repentance and sort of salvation arc. He took something. He took a bribe from Neyrelle's mom and ultimately let her through, and that's part of what led to her downfall. And it's why Neyrelle doesn't have a mom anymore. But he, first of all, when he comes out of nowhere in that mech essentially, that was a really cool entrance, especially for the boss, and he's so integral. You wouldn't have been able to do it without him because there's one move where you need his big shield or you die.
Yeah.
Right.
So it was really cool that they made him integral to the whole thing. It wasn't just lip service. You really did need him in order to finish it. You couldn't have done it without him.
Yeah.
So it was kind of cool to add that sense of a relationship to give it that kind of depth. And it sucks. You don't realize until it's done that he's basically signed a death warrant when he gets into this thing and it opens it up. And Cam was saying earlier, it's an Iron Maiden. Well, to get into the armor, it pierces him everywhere. And he has to be entwined with it. And he's all bloody and nasty because all this stuff has to go into him. So it's it's a single use, and then you're dead. And there's blood literally pouring out of the armor as you open it to give him his final goodbye. And I don't know if it's the same dialogue from every character, but my character was you didn't need that armor to prove your strength or something. Is that what they said on yours?
I think so. That's actually the footage that's going to be playing in the background if you're watching this episode on YouTube.
Yeah.
I recorded that end of Act 1 footage just because it is the most kind of devastating and impressive. So that'll be right there. You can check that dialogue at the end of the episode.
Well, and talking of the grounded human element of the story, I think another reason this story is I'm liking it so much is because of the humanity that they bring to Lilith and giving her that the personal story of her, the stuff with her son. What's his name? Starts with an R.
Rathma.
Yeah. And giving her that personal backstory and it not just being, oh, she's bad and evil. She feels like a human character, even though she is obviously this supernatural demon creature. So I think that's making it much more effective as well.
She has history.
She's a character and not just a thing or a threat, which I really like.
And the writing, I feel is a lot of what we're talking about. Obviously, the writing's great. I've been really enjoying the vocal performances. I think the voice actors are all doing great, but not missing the forest for the trees here. We got to talk about the cutscenes because most of what we get with Lilith and all of these sort of ascendant characters is through these memories that we get through these Lilith's blood petals, where we get sort of these cutaway memory cutscenes. The cutscenes in this game, I was trying to moderate myself in the notes, saying that these were maybe the most incredible CG sequences I've ever seen.
They're
but
pretty
it's
cool.
not. It's definitely the most impressive. Like
They're
They're
pretty
beautiful.
cool.
the rendering, the movement of the characters, of the hands, the detail, the facial expressions, the lighting engines, the locations, the architecture. It is stunning.
Yeah, it's pretty great. And the way that it is integrated with the gameplay. It doesn't do this for all of them, but like at the very beginning, when you first actually like enter the game after the first opening sequence, the way that the camera is overlooking you like in those snowy woods, and then it just keeps like zooming in, and then all of a sudden, like before you know it, you're in that isometric view and you start playing.
The transition.
Yes, those transitions are really good. And I know it's not doing like what God of War does, but still I feel like the transitions are much more natural and organic, and I feel more cemented in the story than I did in Diablo 3.
That is a convention that has existed in games for a very long time, right? Like trying to integrate gameplay with the cutscene, basically trying to make it seamless, like you would go directly from a cutscene to you being in the game. I've noticed that, so there's like 3 different types of cutscenes that this game has. You've got ones that are like sort of stock. You don't really go out of the normal way the game looks. You just get a text box, and maybe you've got like an NPC that's moving their hands or something, or like there's a blood petal mechanic where you go click on it, and then you just see like a red version of Lilith, and she's just giving you that. You don't go to a different screen or anything.
Right.
Then there are some which are still using the normal engine, but they sort of articulate the character that might be talking more than they normally would, right? So they've got like a written action for them that they'll go and move, so it's a little more alive. But they still get to use the same graphics, and that's really the thing here that sets this game apart from a lot of other games that are similar to this. They're able to sort of create that seamless feeling because you can go into a canned cutscene directly in the in-game engine.
Yeah.
And you can see all that happen, so you don't have to break the flow, or you don't have to suspend disbelief. You don't have to break your immersion. But then, what Cam was talking about, the actual big high-dollar CG sequences, those look incredible.
Yeah. Well, and they have your character in them.
Right.
Diablo 3 did not have that. And, again, I know that other games have done this, but I think it was such the right choice to do this, because in Diablo 3, I did not feel like my character was part of the story. I was enjoying the story. I was enjoying playing my character, but it felt like my character was watching the story and wasn't part of it, even though they did kind of try to like sort of fit your character into, oh, you're the Nephilim, right? But this is like, you like see your character model as you designed it in the cutscene. It's actually very funny because Cam and I are playing couch co-op. And so when we know like, if you interact with this character, it begins a cutscene. So we like try to race to see who will get there first so that we can see our character in the cutscene, because it's just whoever, like we're not both in it.
That's
like,
funny.
That's the one thing I wish it did, was I wish it would do us both. Like the story is written so only for one person. Yeah. And so oftentimes like NPC will be talking to like Cam's character about something my character actually technically did. It's very funny. Like we're just
wait. So are you guys both playing a guy and girl?
Yes, I'm a girl. Cam's a guy.
Okay, well, never let it be said that I am not progressive. I am playing my normal archetype. I am playing a female rogue.
Well, Cam's playing a female sorcerer on his own.
Right, named Margaret.
And When I'm waiting to do a solo character because I want to play through the whole story. Like I'm dumb and I'm going to get confused, so I'm going to wait till I'm done with the campaign. But actually, no, I was going to say I'll play a guy. No, I won't. I'm going to play a girl rogue. That's what I'm going to do.
What are our characters named?
Hank and Skunk.
Oh.
Hank the Barbarian and Skunk.
We tried to do Hank and Skank, but it wouldn't let us.
My rogue's name is Ilara, so.
Oh, that's very cool. No, mine is just Skunk. It's very
That's
funny.
better.
Have you ever seen cutscenes in games where you can tell they were trying to throw more of the budget onto this moment because it's sort of the benchmark that you're judged by, but it almost looks like too much detail? Like, oh yeah, I can see all the pores in Jim Carrey's Christmas Carol, but that doesn't make it more impressive. Like, there's a way in which you can over detail and over render. I was so impressed by the focus and clarity of these cutscenes because it was like better than stuff you see in Pixar movies. Whatever the gold standard is, it felt beyond that, and it almost reminded me of the first time I saw Lord of the Rings. When you see Shelob, I'd never seen anything in CG look that good at that point. If you compare, like, that's the third Lord of the Rings movie. Compare it to Aragog, the big spider in Harry Potter. Mm-hmm. It's just a puppet, and it doesn't move.
It's still pretty freaky. I still can't look at it.
Right, because it's like this direct face shot.
Yeah.
But Shelob is fully articulated. She's doing all sorts of moves and hanging. I mean, the Weta effects, because we saw Return of the King in theaters a couple months ago, they're still incredible. And I still think they're more stunning and believable than a lot of the effects you see.
I know that you said Weta, W-E-T-A, but it sounded like with a speech impediment you said weather.
The Weta.
I really love the Weta effects.
Like your Boston's coming out.
Did you?
Yeah.
Did you guys have that feeling at all of like, oh, I didn't know we could do this with computers?
I'm kind of hard to impress with computers.
Really?
Yeah.
Even with that first one with the guys running away.
Well, I mean, I loved the scene and I was like impressed, but I wasn't like particularly blown away. I mean, a lot of CG now I don't think is very good anymore. It's got a lifeless quality to it, so it was very good. But I was like, this is what I expect.
I'm kind of glad that you said that because Cam mentioned Disney Pixar as sort of like at the throne, the apex of animation right now. I agree with Maggie. I think that animation does feel kind of lifeless now. And I was trying to pinpoint why I felt that way. But then when you look at something like Diablo versus what Disney's been pumping out recently, you're right. I mean, this feels bespoke. This feels like someone took time and really did, was very intentional about the way that they designed these creatures and these characters.
Yeah.
But Disney, it just all feels like cut from the literal same cloth.
Totally.
And I know that they have a house style, and I know that the idea is that, there's got to be some consistency throughout. But like, it went from Disney princesses having a sort of a bespoke look. Everyone had their own, like, very easily identifiable character traits, to now everyone kind of looks like a fucking cherub.
They all look the same.
There's one art style.
Like if you change out, like think like Anna and Elsa from Frozen. If you just like take off their hair and makeup, they're the exact same person.
Right.
Yes.
But we're getting away from it. But yeah, I thought the animation in this, in all these cutscenes, but especially like that first sequence of Diablo 4 was really amazing. And I also like the way it was directed, I guess. Like,
yeah, totally.
Especially when they're like, once it really gets into it in that big scene with the blood and stuff. Like it was really, really cool. Yeah, it felt like it was really establishing the mood of the whole game, and I really liked that.
To close out here, I want to return to kind of gameplay questions, because I remember from our discussion before, when we were talking about the beta and sort of our hopes and fears for the full game, we talked about, Tristan, you zeroed in on the new skill tree. Maggie and I talked about worries about the new inventory system. There's a different way that health works. Dodging is more important. How are you guys adjusting to the new gameplay flow?
I was so nervous about the inventory system, and I actually love it. And it's for a stupid reason. It's because as like beautifully designed as the radial system in Diablo 3 is, when I move the stick around, I can't land on the one I want to land.
Oh, this is a mechanical thing?
It's just
okay.
me sucking at everything. And so this one it's upright left, it's up, down, left, and right instead of radial. And so it's actually easier for me to use. And I also like, in the radial system, like let's say you're looking at your weapons, you open the weapons, globe, and then you have all the weapons. So then I felt like I had to compare them all to each other. With this like grid system, you kind of just March Madness it, and you'd like just look at things one at a time. So like if I have 4 swords that I've collected, I don't really notice that. I look at what's in my inventory one thing at a time, and it might be that like, sword A that I picked up is better than what I have, so I switch to that. And then 3 items later I get to sword B. Oh no, that's better. Like I just find the comparison a lot easier than like all of than the radial thing. And no, I really like it. I don't love that it looks a bit like an Excel spreadsheet, but I think that they have
the skill tree.
No, the inventory.
Okay.
Yeah. It's like a grid.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think the way that they let you compare things, and I just think it works really well. I like it a lot.
Great. Okay.
Nah, I think that the radial was easier to use.
Maybe for you.
Yes, for those with
Who can
with
operate
the
a
right
stick.
thumb.
That's the left thumb, actually.
Sorry.
Oh no, is it the right? I don't know. I don't know.
That's really embarrassing.
No,
if
it's
you're
the
wrong.
left. It's the left. I'm sorry.
But anyway, yeah, I like the way that worked. I mean, it made it easy to compartmentalize because you've got so many different pieces of gear that you can use. Having them all kind of thrown into one place. I mean, if I'm trying to figure out if I want to use like which pair of boots I want to use, it's really easy to compare if it's in its own bucket versus strewn out over everything. But it's not a big gripe. I think it works reasonably well. I'm not loving the respecking and the skills, switching skills and stuff.
Yeah.
From your leveling tree. Mostly because each skill that you have can require like up to 7 points allotted to it. And if you decide that you want to switch to a different skill, even in that same like tree, right? Say I want to switch to barrage from rapid fire as a rogue, I have to manually take out every single one of those 7 and put each one of those 7 into the other skill. And it doesn't take that long to do, but like you have to like hold down square or if you're on Xbox X. To undo it. And that just takes such a long time unnecessarily. Like, give me one button to press that will like cut off the branch and get rid of, like, give me back all of the points that were in. Because if I'm going to take back the skill itself, I'm obviously going to take back every other level in it.
And it's not like you're going to redistribute those skill points across multiple skills. Like, that wouldn't make any sense. Like, you're obviously going to use them all for the same
fix.
level of another. Yeah, it seems like there should be an even exchange function.
Yeah, and so I feel like that's clunkier than it needs to be. I also feel that once you do endgame, it doesn't make any sense at all that you have to spec skills in a certain, or spend points in a certain area in order to progress to the next area, right? There's no reason why I shouldn't be able to have just one basic skill and then an ultimate and then a million other like passive skills. Creating sort of a leveling system where you have to allot points to unlock the next set of skills and stuff, that makes sense at first when you're just learning the game, and so that you're getting new skills trickle fed to you so you're not overwhelmed. But by the time that you're done and you've leveled up significantly and it doesn't matter anymore, like, you should just be able to do whatever you want with those.
Sure. Yeah. No, that makes sense. I will say about the skill tree, I was also really nervous about that. And I will say, when the first day we played, the first time we unlocked a skill, I was like, okay, Cam, we need to like, I need you to explain it to me like I'm 5. We need to take like 20 minutes because I was so confused.
You're pretty savvy now.
I understand. Like, once I got once it finally clicked, I was like, oh, I understand what this is and what's happening here. And I'm used to it. And I like that it gives you a bit more freedom than like the system in Diablo 3 where it's like, this is your A skill, this is your X skill, and like, you can't mix and match, And I liked the simplicity of that. It made it, I think, easier for me to wrap my brain around and not be overwhelmed by decision fatigue. But so I like but I do like the freedom that this one allows me. But sometimes it does feel a bit like, and even still, like, when you have to when you click it, and then also assigning is weird. Like, it could be cleaner. Like, it
could auto assign, and it does sometimes, but it doesn't always auto assign.
Yeah. My worst thing. So I'm playing Necromancer.
Yeah.
And my special thing is my Book of the Dead. So it's my skeletal mages or skeletal golem or skeletal whatever.
The things you summon.
Yeah. My helpers. And if I want to switch from skeletal mage to golem, I have to not only select it within the Book of the Dead, but also unassign the skeleton skill and reassign the golem. It's a little clunky.
Yes. And maybe it's easier on PC. But on console, there's a whole extra thing where you can break out the assign menu, and it shows you all of the skills that you have unlocked. And ostensibly, you would be able to select one of those skills that you have unlocked and then assign it from that smaller pool. But what you end up having to do is it just shows you what you have assigned, and you have to like break out of that menu and go back into the skill tree itself in order to click on it and then allow yourself to assign it.
Yes, it's
so
really
it feels
stupid.
like you would only have the ability to see the skills that you have unlocked along with like what you have assigned if the intention was to be able to quickly reassign and assign from that window.
Exactly.
So maybe that's the intended use of it, but they just haven't implemented it yet. But it's kind of frustrating.
I have some faith that this being a live game, I mean, the way they've responded to problems, the way they've dropped hot fixes and patches has been incredible.
Like even an early release weekend, they dropped a whole big patch.
Like 2 or 3. So I'm encouraged that some of these quality of life problems can be fixed. Another one would be, I don't like how many spots gems end up taking up in my inventory.
Right. People have been campaigning for a gem pouch since day one.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think in time, maybe a couple seasons down the road, hopefully those things are fixed. But if we can return to kind of a class check-in as a way to wrap this up.
Yeah.
Talk about your characters and just your sort of experience, your journey with them in terms of progression, your skills, the power fantasy we discussed earlier, balance. Are you hitting a flow state? Is it too difficult? Is it too grindy? What's your journey been like with your chosen class?
Well, I'll save some of this for when we start talking about Act 2 in our next diary episode. But so far, I was especially in Act 1, I was really happy with it. It was a lot of fun. I liked the different skills I was unlocking. I felt like I was just like kind of relearning the class, and I appreciate that it's ranged, and it's also just like very like aesthetically cool. Like my character looks really like she's just like this cool like emo goth girl. She's very fun, and like I made her like super like ice blonde and like really kind of creepy looking, which is fun. My biggest complaint is that it's slow. I wouldn't expect I don't remember the Necromancer being particularly slow in Diablo 3, and that's not like a type of character that I would see as being slow. I mean, I know when you're ranged, you're not as fast, but it seems like that should be a character that's like, I am doing everything I can to make my character faster. Like,
do you mean movement or attack speed?
Both.
Okay.
But
intelligence.
She's just kind of slow. She's a
kind
dumb.
of a moron. A little.
A dullard.
I mostly mean movement speed. My attacks, because I was also at the beginning of this, I was using two-handed weapons, and I realized, what am I doing? I hate two-handed weapons because they're slow. Like, why would I ever want that? So I switched out of that, and that's helped by having. Really, I have two weapons. I have like my sword.
So do you mean attack speed or movement?
I mean movement. Sorry. But anyway, so attack speed has been solved. But movement speed, like, and maybe it's because I'm playing with Cam, who's a barbarian, who's so fast. But like sometimes when we're like moving from place to place, I will just literally stop moving because Cam will just drag me along, and that's faster than me trying to keep up with him. Like, it's really embarrassing.
Yeah.
And it's really annoying, especially when we're like in a big boss fight and I need to like get out of the way, and I only have one dodge. And so I like can't get out of.
Oh my god, that reminds me of like school. You remember when like being in grade school when like being fast mattered for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Like it mattered who could beat who in a race.
Yeah.
Like that was important. That was really important.
Well, and I was a very fast child too, so I'm like really annoyed.
So she was like, "This is not my lived experience.
I am not used to this."
So a fast child.
I was. Anyway, the point is like I feel like I'm like anytime there's like a pair of boots that ups my movement speed, or like an amulet or something that will give me more movement speed, I'm doing that, and I'm still slow. So that's annoying.
Maggie, I didn't mean to alienate you whenever I said when we were young it mattered. If it still matters to you, I hope you feel seen.
When you're like a short person, you kind of have to be like fast.
Take
all
it
the
where you can
time.
get it.
You just have to listen. Okay.
You're like a chihuahua. Like you're always wiggling. Your heart beats faster than everyone else.
Yeah, I'm disappointed that my necro is not more like a chihuahua. That's the thesis statement that I'm going to go with. But otherwise, I'm really enjoying my emo goth chihuahua.
Okay, good.
What about y'all?
The female rogue has the absolute opposite issue. She is so fast. So I hate saying this, but it has a very high like mechanical skill ceiling, right? So if you figure out the proper combination of skills and stuff, you can be really, really good with them if you use them properly. but it is a very, very involved class, right? And what I mean by that is you can't just sort of like a sorcerer sit there and cast all of your high damage area of effect abilities. You have to be constantly on the move because you're so squishy. If you stand still for, I shit you not, 5 seconds, you will die.
No, I mean, that's what happens to the Necromancer too, and I'm slow.
Yeah. And so my abilities, I necessarily have to have some sort of a high velocity movement ability, or some of the other defensive, or one of the other defensive abilities lets you like basically go invisible and everyone stops targeting you, so you can run away and heal for a little bit and reposition so that you can get that range again and attack from more of a distance. So there's a lot of really, really cool skills involved with the rogue, but you have to constantly be on your game, because if you slip up or if you like get out of position one time, you really can die, which is not something that is I'm used to outside of like the big end game dungeons and stuff in Diablo.
Sure, yeah. Well, Cam, how are you're playing 2 classes, so which one would you like to start with?
Let's start with Barbarian since that's my main. I feel like I'm still on this journey with the Barbarian, where every level is a bit better than the previous one. But that means, especially in Act 1, that it's not a thrilling character. Like, there's some build cohesion coming now, but the more the class balances out, the more boring it becomes. So he went from being really weak to being very dull, where the main skills I'm using they're pretty rote. Like, going through the rotation of my skills is not fun. It's just sort of a habit. Like, the only fun I'm having with the Barbarian, because he is faster. He's got the leap ability. He's got a lot of movement speed buffs. A lot of, he's lunging a lot of the time. There's a twirling where you swing your big sword around and you almost like.
There's a twirling.
That's sort of my big skill that I'm using most of the time. And you move faster while you're twirling. So I'm doing more damage, but the only fun I'm having is the way I'm trying to coordinate or synthesize with Maggie's Necromancer, where she can gather up all the enemies and then I can whirlwind on top of them.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I'm not enjoying the Barbarian as nearly as much as I usually do, but I'm very glad I'm doing a secondary class.
Yeah.
Because
that's what I was going to say. Is that sort of exacerbated by your solo usage of the Sorcerer, which is like well known to be like the best class on launch?
I think so, and I didn't obviously I started it before it developed that reputation, but the Barbarian I chose because I wanted a melee build that wouldn't be boring. I thought it would be more involved and desperate, and I'd have to wrestle with health more, and I would just be more involved. That's why I like games like Destiny 2. I like really quick, involved, frenetic, crazy games. I think that's what hooks me the most. And Barbarian just ended up, it kind of feels autopilot. But when I started that magician class, that sorcerer class, and I optimized for this fire build, the amount of damage I was doing was incredible. Because it wasn't just, hacking at a brick wall with the Barbarian. I agree. I was sort of identifying with the stuff you were saying, Tristan, because the sorcerer is weak. The health is terrible. You have to be tactical and you have to dodge so much that I'm glad you mentioned sort of the Souls comparison, because that's what this game feels like. Maybe it's a little closer to like Witcher 3, where it's kind of Soulsy but not fully committed, with the lock on and all that.
Yeah, exactly.
But I have to keep moving all the time, and my fire powers get a lot more powerful if I stand still. So it's lot about dancing around and finding little perches, but every skill with the Sorcerer is fun to use. They work so well together. The cooldowns are there, but I can accelerate them, so I really get to use all of my skills all the time. The Sorcerer class is quick, it's smart, it's responsive, it's strategic. I'm loving the Sorcerer class, especially for Act 1.
I will say we played, a few hours of Act 1, like when it first, early launch weekend together. And then, Cam was like, I think I'm liking the Barbarian, but I don't know, but maybe I just need to wait till it gets better. And then like the next day I was doing something or I wasn't playing, or I don't know. So you played your solo character for like an hour and you were like, the Sorcerer's so much better. Like immediately. So yeah, I think you've gotten a bit more used to your Barbarian and you've grown to like it a bit more, but I can tell the Sorcerer is way your preference.
And it seems to be that that's what the issue is right now. Right now, your tankier classes, the Barbarian and the Druid, seem to be having a worse time as far as like enjoyment goes from the community at large. And I think that probably has to do with the fact that by and large, the enemies this time around are a little harder.
Yeah, they're tough.
Even your little baby enemies, right? The trash mobs that you can usually clean up pretty quickly in like 1 or 2, maybe 3 auto attacks. They're taking a lot longer. You're talking about 1 and 2, resource spending skills to kill them.
Totally.
And so I think the difficulty is ramped up on this one a little more than in Diablo 3. And so as a result, I feel like those high damage classes feel a little closer to what you would expect and what you're used to from a Diablo game, because even though it's sort of drawn back a little bit, you do have the ability to output a lot of damage quickly and mow through enemies. But I've noticed that like the builds and stuff for the Druid and the Barbarian aren't getting as much love because they're not as visceral and they're not as powerful as like, say, the Rogue or the Sorcerer.
It almost feels like Mario Kart. Remember when there were some carts that had great acceleration and terrible speeds?
Yes.
You'd win at the beginning, and then like lap 2, you'd be dying.
Yes.
I liked the kind of higher skill ceiling where terrible acceleration but really fast speed. So if you don't screw
Long
up,
game.
long game, and you
Well,
become...
go play a Rogue.
Sure, but I think the tanky characters should feel like that, and I don't know what else to blame right now beyond the scaling of the enemies to your level.
Yes.
Because it's just not very fun. With the secondary character, I wasn't playing a lot of the main quests because I'd just done that. So I spent a lot of my time wandering around the map and doing side quests, and I am stunned by how much I'm enjoying the side quests here.
I love the
They're
side quests.
fun. They're really well written.
I mean,
They're
some of
good.
them are like memorable short stories.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
I like the one about, maybe that's in Act 2, the fat goose.
Yes, that's Act 2.
Okay, sorry, I'll save it.
And the other ones are just kind of oddly satisfying checklist quests that my lizard brain likes doing.
Yes.
Yes.
But wandering around the map as the sorcerer, when I went back to the main quest and I wasn't any stronger, like Tristan, you mentioned Elden Ring. When I play Elden Ring, I farm. I have to. I'm not terribly good at those. So I have to run around and kill a bunch of trolls and level up before jumping into the castle or whatever.
Yeah.
The fact that you can't do that here and that it always feels the same, I think that cheapens that sense of progression a bit.
You're absolutely right. I mean, the world enemies that are just on the surface world, not in dungeons and stuff, they are ubiquitous. And they don't provide that much experience, and they don't usually drop good items.
Yeah.
So it's like you need the story quests, or you need to go raid a dungeon and finish that in order to get tangible experience or good items in order to level up. And it's funny, they're really focused on what the end game of this one looks like, right? Because with the expectation that was set with Diablo 3, and prior to that, Diablo 2. The idea is this game could be around for 10, 12 years. And so they knew that going in, but I think as a result of that, the progression that you feel from the story mode or the base game, it has sort of fallen by the wayside because all of this stuff, and like the story is still good, but the progression of your character, you're not really going to feel uber powerful until you're like level 100.
Yeah, at no point, and we're deep into Act 2 now. At no point have I felt like, I'm leveled up now. Like I haven't felt, like we talked about, like
strong.
I just, I mean, I don't want the game to be easy, certainly, but I feel like I am struggling the whole time. I'm having a really good time. It's really fun. Yeah. But I am struggling to stay alive. Even like you said, Tristan, those just like casual enemies you run into while crossing terrain, like those, every time a bear comes at me, I'm like, if Cam wasn't here, I'd be dead. Because my stupid skeletons are fighting like the other enemies that don't cause any damage, and the bear is faster than me and won't leave me the fuck alone.
Well, you know what I would say? I would recommend you guys jump up to tier 2 because you're gonna get better drops too. You like realist. I think you get a 20% bump in experience Now, realistically, because you can kill enemies a little faster in World Tier 1, I don't think that it's going to meaningfully make you progress faster or level up much faster. But it will get you more used to when you finally unlock like Tier 3 and 4, which is honestly where we're going to want to be at eventually, because that's where the good gear is at.
Sure. Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah. I think maybe to just draw a line under this, for Act 1, the story was the standout for me over the gameplay.
Totally. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And I'm excited to talk about how we feel about that balance in Act 2.
Well,
but yeah, that's our Diablo diary.
Yes, that's Act 1. Second Breakfast Pod on all the social media, bonus episodes on Substack. And we'll be back on Friday for a brand new episode.
And
cool.
I assume Tristan will be here for our next Diablo
will.
diary. Okay.
He'll be here for Act 2.
All right, great.
All right, cool.
And 3 and 4 and 5.
And 6.
There are 6 in this one.
Ooh,
Yeah.
that's on brand.